Welcome back to our Epochs podcast.
This is Episode 1.
At the center of this story lies a simple question.
How did mechanized printing transform knowledge dissemination and society in Europe?
Okay, so let's dive in. We have a huge amount of research here today, and honestly, the story we're getting into feels familiar.
It's very familiar. It's really the story of the biggest information explosion in history.
Kind of like the internet, but 500 years before the internet.
That's exactly it. But to really get the explosion, you first have to understand the silence that came before it.
Right. The thing that really struck me about the early 1400s wasn't what was there, but what wasn't.
Exactly. Think about it. In 1440, if you wanted to know something, you couldn't just, look it up. There was no looking it up.
Knowledge wasn't just out there in the world.
No. It was locked away. It was heavy. It was behind stone walls in monasteries.
So you have to picture a scriptorium.
Yeah, a monastic scriptorium. And
Yeah.
it's cold.
Freezing, I'd imagine.
Freezing. They couldn't have open fires because of the risk to the parchment. So all you hear is breathing and the sound of a quill scratching on a page.
And the person writing is fighting a losing battle.
A totally losing battle. A scribe working all day until his eyes just blurred. He might produce, 3, maybe 4 pages?
A day.
A day. To copy a single Bible could take years of his life.
Years. For just one book.
For one book. And because of that labor, the final product was just incredibly expensive.
I saw a number in the research that, it just floored me.
The $25,000 book?
Yes. The equivalent of $25,000 today. That's a car.
It's a car. It's a down payment on a house. So books weren't for you and me. They were luxury items like jewels. They belonged to kings, to bishops.
But it was more than just the cost, wasn't it? It was about how fragile it all was.
That's the part that's truly terrifying. Every single time a book was copied, by hand, errors would creep in.
A little smudge, a tired eye.
A tired monk misreads a word, or he skips a whole line. So over centuries, knowledge didn't just stand still. It actively degraded. It rotted.
It's like that game of telephone.
A centuries-long game of telephone. And if, God forbid, a library burned down.
That's it. It's gone forever.
Gone. A whole world of thought just extinguished. That was the bottleneck of civilization, the physical limit of the human hand.
Okay, so the world is quiet, books cost a fortune, and knowledge is literally falling apart. And then our guy shows up, Johannes Gutenberg.
The man in Mainz.
Now, I always had this image of him as some kind of lone genius having a eureka moment. But he seems more like a tech entrepreneur.
Oh, he was absolutely a tech entrepreneur. And a bit of a hustler, too. He wasn't a scholar. He was a craftsman. A goldsmith.
He knew metal.
He knew metal. And funnily enough, before the press, his business was making mirrors for pilgrims.
Mirrors? Why?
Well, they believed they could hold up these little mirrors to holy relics and sort of capture the holy light.
So he went from capturing light to capturing language.
In a way, yeah. But let's get into the nuts and bolts. The big surprise for me was that he didn't actually invent printing.
No, the idea was already there.
Right. The Chinese and Koreans had movable type centuries earlier. And the press mechanism itself was, it was common.
He stole it from winemakers.
He basically did. He looked at a screw press for making wine or olive oil and thought, what if I use that on paper? His real genius was solving all the little problems that made it practical.
Okay, so problem number 1 was the ink.
The ink. Scribes used a water-based ink. Works great with a quill.
But on metal.
On a piece of metal type, it just beads up and runs off. It's a mess. So Gutenberg needed something sticky, something that would cling.
And he developed an oil-based ink.
Yeah, like a varnish, soot, turpentine, walnut oil. It stuck to the metal and transferred cleanly.
Okay, so we had the press and the ink, but the real breakthrough, the thing that changed the world, was the metalwork.
The alloy and the hand mold. This is the heart of it. He needed a metal that melted at a low temperature, so it was easy to work with.
But it also had to be tough enough not to get squished by the press.
Exactly. And he found the perfect recipe. Lead, tin, and antimony. It's so good. It's basically what's still used today in letterpress.
But the invention that scaled everything up was the hand mold. I had to read about this a few times.
It's a little tricky to visualize. The best way to think of it is like an infinitely reusable cookie cutter.
Okay, I'm with you.
So imagine you want 1,000 tiny metal letter A's. You start by carving one perfect A on the end of a hard steel punch.
Right.
You hammer that punch into a softer piece of copper. Now you have a perfect sunken impression of the A. That's your matrix.
So the matrix is the mold.
It's the bottom of the mold. You slide that matrix into this little handheld device. You pour in the hot lead alloy.
And a pop?
And pop, out comes a perfect identical letter A, and you can do it again and again and again at incredible speed.
So you go from having one A to having hundreds of them, all exactly the same, standardized.
That is the breakthrough. It's not just printing. It's the mass production of the components of language.
The numbers are just, they're wild.
Yeah.
A scribe, 40 pages in a week maybe?
And a printing press could churn out 3,600 pages.
In a week.
In a single day.
From 40 a week to 3,600 a day. That's not just an improvement. That's a paradigm shift.
The bottleneck wasn't just broken, it was obliterated. But technology doesn't always spread just because it's a good idea. Sometimes it needs a catalyst, sometimes a catastrophe.
Right, because this whole operation was just in Mainz, Germany for a while.
It was a local secret. But then, in 1462, disaster, a political feud, the city of Mainz gets sacked. It was brutal.
And the printers lost their jobs.
Everyone lost their jobs. The city was ruined. So the printers who had learned this new craft from Gutenberg, they had no choice. They had to flee.
And they took the secrets with them.
They packed up their molds, their punches, their knowledge, and they scattered. It was like a diaspora of ink.
They went down the Rhine, across the Alps.
Setting up shops in Venice, Paris, all over Europe. This local disaster is what made the technology go viral.
And the speed of that is just incredible. By 1500, so what, less than 50 years later?
Presses were in over 200 cities, and they had produced something like 20 million books.
From almost 0 to 20 million in one person's lifetime.
And the content started to change, too. Sure, at first it was Bibles. That was the big money. But a press is a hungry beast. It needs to keep running to be profitable.
So they started printing anything.
Anything. Romance novels, art from Albrecht Dürer, Ovid, cookbooks.
Which brought the prices way down.
Plummeting. Suddenly, a merchant or a lawyer could actually afford to own a few books, maybe even a small library.
But this is where it gets interesting. Because anytime a technology comes along and shakes things up this much, there's a backlash.
Oh, always. For the scribes, this was an existential threat. This was the machine coming for their livelihood.
And we have the perfect voice for that backlash. Abbot Johannes Trithemius.
Yes. He looked at these printed books and was just horrified. He thought they were spiritually empty. He argued that the physical act of copying a text by hand, that was a form of prayer. The labor was the point. Printing made monks intellectually lazy.
He was the original get-off-my-lawn guy.
He was! He even argued that paper was flimsy garbage compared to good, solid parchment. He thought these new books would just rot away.
But my favorite part of this whole story is the irony. The incredible irony of what he did next.
It's just perfect, isn't it? He wanted to make sure his argument against printing was heard by as many people as possible.
So to spread his message far and wide.
He printed it! He published his book In Praise of Scribes using a printing press.
That is just amazing. He used the machine he hated to complain about the machine.
But while he was worried about lazy monks, the church was starting to worry about something way bigger.
Control.
Total control. For centuries, the church held a monopoly on truth. And the key to that monopoly was language.
Everything was in Latin.
The Bible, the Mass, everything. But the average person on the street spoke German or French or English. You couldn't read the terms and conditions of your own religion.
You just had to trust the priest, the ultimate gatekeeper.
And the press smashed the gate. The man who walked through the opening was Martin Luther.
We all know the story of him nailing the 95 Theses to the church door.
But that wasn't the main event. The nailing was just like posting on a local community board. The real event was when a printer saw those theses and thought,
Ooh, controversy. This will sell.
exactly. They saw profit in conflict. They translated Luther's words from academic Latin into common German and fired up the presses.
It was the first viral media event in history.
It was. It moved so much faster than the authorities could react. Before the church could even organize a response, there were hundreds of thousands of copies of Luther's pamphlets in people's hands.
The genie was out of the bottle.
And this shift to the vernacular, to the language people actually spoke, that changed everything. A baker in Germany could now read the scripture for himself.
And form his own opinions.
And question authority. The entire hierarchy started to tremble.
The church did try to fight back, right? With the index of prohibited books.
The first big list of banned content. But it was impossible to enforce.
Why?
Because printing was decentralized. If a book was banned in France, a printer in the Netherlands would just say, "Great, a banned book, that's a bestseller." And they'd smuggle thousands of copies across the border.
A whole black market for ideas.
A huge one. So while all this religious chaos is unfolding, another quieter revolution is happening, the one that built the modern world.
The revelation in science.
The architecture of knowledge. Before the press, if you were a scientist, you were mostly alone. And you couldn't even trust your sources.
Because of the copying errors.
Yeah.
The rot.
Right. But printing created the standardized text. If you print 1,000 anatomy books, every diagram is identical. If a scholar in Italy finds a mistake,
he can publish a correction.
And that correction gets incorporated into the next edition for everyone. Knowledge started to become cumulative. It was like software patches for science.
So it builds on itself instead of degrading.
Precisely. And that created what they called the Republic of Letters, a virtual network of scholars. Copernicus could publish his work, and suddenly it's on the desks of Galileo and Kepler.
And this wasn't just for big science, it affected the economy too.
Massively. Presses started printing commercial arithmetic textbooks for merchants on calculating interest and profits.
And there's data on this, right?
Right.
The cities with presses grew faster.
60% faster than cities that didn't adopt the press. Information became a huge economic advantage.
So it changed religion, science, economics.
Mm.
But the last piece here feels, I don't know, more personal. It changed how our brains work.
It changed the act of reading itself. Before print, reading was almost always done out loud. It was a social activity because books were so rare.
But once books became cheap and portable,
a new behavior emerges. Silent reading.
Which feels completely normal to us.
But it was revolutionary. It created a private space inside your own head to engage with ideas alone. It fostered individualism.
And while it was creating individuals, it was also creating nations.
Yeah. Printers wanted to sell to the biggest possible market, so they standardized languages. They took messy local dialects and froze them into what we now know as German or French or English.
So the whole mental landscape of Europe was just redrawn.
Completely and permanently. The monopoly on information was broken forever. The era of mass communication had begun.
It's just incredible that a simple alloy of lead, tin, and antimony could fundamentally rewrite the human operating system.
It really did.
Before we end, take a moment to sit with this story.
These moments from the past are not just about ideas or discoveries.
They are about people,
their ambitions,
the quiet choices that shape the world we live in today.
Thank you for listening.
Until next time.
This was Epochs.